Welcome to Behind the Crown Podcast with your hosts, Bryan Hutson and Josh Griffin. Sit back and enjoy these great stories and memories of the Kingsmen Quartet.
Welcome to another great episode of Behind the Crown Podcast with your host, Bryan Hutson and Josh Griffin. Josh, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How's Bryan Hutson?
I'm doing well, Josh. Doing well. It's a beautiful day out, and we got out and did some running around today. And a couple days ago, I had my granddaughters I had picked them up off the bus, and so we had a great time with them. And I always love taking care of my granddaughters. Of course, we did. They ate a good dinner. So we had ice cream, Josh. There's an ice cream place right down the road. So we went down there and had ice cream like we really needed ice cream. So we had a really good time. But man, you're just looking great. You're still working out. I can tell you're getting thick there through the chest and through your biceps. You're looking good.
Well, thank you. You're too kind. But surprisingly or not, I've been able to stick with it. So consistently, that's the key. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I like pizza and potato chips way too much. So anyway,
I do too. That's why I go to that gym. Yeah.
Right. Well, just in case you're joining us, this podcast is dedicated to the message, the men, and the music of the mighty Kingsmen Quartet. And we encourage you to go back and watch the previous episodes. This is a special episode tonight, Josh.
Yes,
but before we get rolling on the special episode on the podcast, do we have some useless information tonight?
Yes, sir. Pilots and their co-pilots are required to eat different meals before flights so they both don't end up with food poisoning.
I have read that somewhere. I have read that just in case one would get sick by something, bad. They don't both have the same meal. I have read that. That's pretty interesting.
That's pretty smart thinking. Yeah.
Right. And we had Rory Rigdon on a few weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
And we had told the story about the first time that I ever flew.
That was a funny story.
Rory was involved in that. So we got to get you in a plane, Josh.
Yeah.
We need to get you sometime, get you on a flight. I just think we need to do that. So, but I actually have a piece of useless information too. And this one is mine. A day on Earth is not exactly 24 hours. A day on Earth is actually 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds.
Wow.
So we always relate 24 hours in a day.
Yep.
Actually, it's a little bit less than that. It's 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. So there you have it.
Huh. That's neat.
Hey friends, Alan Kendall with today's Kingsmen Quartet here. Mark your calendars for Friday, July the 10th, 2026, a very important day for the Kingsmen. We will be hosting our 70th anniversary hometown concert at Trinity Baptist Church in Asheville, North Carolina, July 10th at 6:30 p.m. We will be singing songs, both brand new and newly recorded, updated versions of Kingsmen hits from our 70th anniversary album, Still Jesus, which also drops to digital retailers that very same day. Then we'll have an extended second half where we will be singing all hits with an all-star Kingsmen cast. The present Kingsmen will be joined by several past members for an evening you will never forget. Now, there is no admission charge for this concert. This is a thank you to our fans. But you can reserve seats and name your own price in our Center 70 section by visiting our Facebook page. Information will be pinned at the top of the page with the link where you can reserve a place among the best seats in the sanctuary and at your own price. The demand for these seats is large, so act quickly. Hey, we'll see you in Asheville on July the 10th.
Well, Josh, if you want to go ahead and tell them what the special episode is tonight on the podcast?
Yes, we're actually going to get to watch here on this episode of Behind the Crown Podcast, Episode 2 of Then and Now, the Kingsmen Documentary. And Bryan discovers, I think, from the early 70s to 1985, I believe.
Yeah, 1971 to 1985.
Yeah. Of course, you're going to get to watch in a few minutes, but see some of the main characters, I guess you would say, in the Kingsmen history gets introduced in this episode. And yes, sir. And it's going to be fun to watch, and I can't wait to watch it with everyone tonight.
And then when the episode's off, we'll come back and talk about it for a minute. So enjoy this part 2.
Joined the Kingsmen in I guess it was 71, and moved here from the Rebels, a group down in Florida I was with for many, many years, and enjoyed that. Liked to fish, and we sung all over the country, and some great talent, London, Paris, and Ronnie Booth, and all the guys, Jimmy Taylor, that sung with me there. And then from there, I went to the Oak Ridge, and then back to them, and then here to the Kingsmen, an entirely new way of life. And Eldridge, when I moved here, we were part-time. I was running the piano store on the busy bend of Chattanooga. That's one of our main thoroughfares here. And we did the piano store there, and Fox managed and coached a slow-pitch softball team.
Had a lot of great, wonderful years singing, and then all of a sudden he decided that everybody needs a burden to bear. What? And I wound up hiring this next guy. And what made it worse, there's 2 of them come along about the same time. But I wish you'd welcome here into a new era, our 2 new guys, Ray Dean Reese and big, large James Howell.
What a man. What a man. He was tough. Some people thought he was a little, smart act sometimes. But everything he ever done was for the benefit of the crew. He was a good guy, and he loved music. Now, take him away from music, he was just an average guy.
He was a father figure, and sort of like, and I mean, I was 25 years old. You thought I was a man, but there again, just a kid looking back on it. But and ultimate respect. No one will really know. I know he came across as overbearing at times, but no one will ever know the heart of why he was that way, why he wanted perfection that way. Because as his favorite phrase was, nobody likes it but the people. When we were in it for the people, if the people didn't enjoy you, you all went home.
I just loved him to hear him sing. Like, I loved watching him work an audience, but more than that, his softer songs like I Owe It All to Him. Once I was clothed. I just love that type of stuff, and Hamill was a master at that.
Jim Hamill's name is etched into gospel music's memory. Many still call him the greatest MC the genre has ever seen. And when Hamill stepped onto the Kingsmen's bus alongside Eldridge Fox and Ray Dean Reese, a trio was formed that would become one of the most unstoppable forces the quartet world has ever known.
I guess Foxy was the only person in the world I could have worked with, because I do crazy things, as most of you know. And Foxy just turned the stage over to me and the music and just let me run with it. And
their partnership would shape the next 30 years of Kingsmen dominance. 1971 also marked the birth of another Kingsmen staple, the Kingsmen Band. Exact historical details are hazy, but it's widely accepted that the first complete band included Charles Abey, John Broome, and Leonard Hollifield, debuting on the album America's Favorite Hymns. That project also marked the end of an era. It was Jerry Redd's final recording with the group, leaving the tenor position open once again.
The world is bright since I got right. I sing and pray and shout. All the burdens have been lifted since the Savior brought me out. I'll tell the world both far and near, and to travel here below. I'd rather be an old-time Christian than anything I know.
I'd been here 3 or 4 months, and Jerry Redd, he left the Kingsmen, and we had to find a tenor. We looked all over. Tenors are hard to find. And we got a record from a young man out in Texas. And I never heard such singing then and now. I have never heard one better. John Parrick, ladies and gentlemen.
Joel Gentry called me. He said, you're going to get a call from an Eldridge Fox, and he's the owner, manager of the Kingsmen. And I remembered the Kingsmen the other day, and I thought, of all the groups, call me. That's not the one. I didn't know what was in plan for that, so.
Enter Johnny Parrick, the man who would become the patriarch of the modern Kingsmen tenor sound. Joining the group in late 1971, he first appeared on another Foxy move, one that was of pure genius, the cross-promotional album presented by Colonial Mobile Homes. And with that, the lineup of Johnny, Jim, Foxy, and Ray, along with their band that now included Jim McCauley, was established. But it wasn't just the sound of this lineup that made them unforgettable. It was the spirit they carried with them. These weren't just talented singers, they were natural-born jokesters, men who believed that joy in the Lord was something to be lived as much as it was sung.
I'll never forget the time that the folks up in Chicago wasn't familiar with our kind of singing in those days. And we'd gone for years and years and years and had never gotten anywhere. And finally, we were there one night and people were raising their hand and shouting. And I thought Hamill had absolutely lost his mind. But he had John Broom to sing The Preacher and the Bear. And I thought, my Lord. And so help me, it's the first standing ovation I guess we ever had.
The Kingsmen traveled the country, leaving audiences laughing as often as they left them shouting. And sometimes the humor wasn't even on stage. It was on the bus, at roadside stops, or in moments no one else ever saw. One afternoon in Greenville, South Carolina, while on the way to a weekly television taping, the group wandered over to a way station scale just to see what would happen if all of them stepped on together. The dial climbed and climbed and climbed and settled at a full 2,000 pounds. From that moment on, they proudly called themselves the Ton of Fun.
Well, everybody weighed a lot. Everybody was big, except me. Johnny Parrick was the next smallest among us, but the rest of them weighed pretty good, pretty husky. Put it that over right.
It's good to be here again, as we said earlier, and I know you've been enjoying the singing, but right now, I'd like to introduce to you one of the hottest, most popular gospel groups in the country today. Without a doubt, I can say that, and I know what I'm talking about because people like you respond to them everywhere they go. They're known affectionately as the Ton of Fun. From the land and the sky, would you give a Gadsden, Alabama welcome to the Kingsmen Quartet?
Little did anyone know that when the year 1973 began, the Kingsmen would close out that year with one of the most iconic live albums to ever come along in Southern gospel music. The guys surely dreamed big, but even they could not have predicted what was about to happen when the tapes began to roll in Gadsden, Alabama.
Hamill and Foster wanted to capture the spirit and the action of what happened at a live concert. The amen, to praise the Lord, and shouting.
When it happened, it was an anomaly, really, because live albums before that one were just almost sounding canned. And we were, my dad and of course Jim, they sit down, and I can remember them telling stories and with Mr. Norcross, with Marvin Norcross, and talking about they wanted to take the shouting off of it and the amens and the clapping and the laughter, Well, that's not y'all singing, that's, but it's a live album.
The Kingsmen had just signed with Canaan Records, joining a powerhouse roster that included many top groups of gospel music, such as the Inspirations, the Happy Goodmans, and the Florida Boys. Everything was lining up for a home run of an album. Produced by Marvin Norcross, Big and Live captured the Kingsmen doing what they did best, singing to a live audience. But this wasn't just any concert, it was lightning in a bottle, and it would earn the Dove Award for Album of the Year in 1974. Love Lifted Me is a song found on Big and Live. There's a special story that goes with the song, and if you've not heard it, give us just a moment.
If somebody, Sonny Dukes up in the balcony and said, well, he got saved, we sung in the prison, he got saved, we're singing Love Lifted Me, that's Sonny Dukes said, well, glory. If he was over here on this right side, well, that microphone picked that up. That track is there. That's his whole track. I mean, he's on that track. Well, you got to do this, we got to, no, we don't got to overdub. If we get a place and we can fix something that's real bad, yeah, that's fine. But that audience, that's what made the live album.
Jim Hamill led the audience in a powerful, emotional moment during the performance of that song, but one voice rose above the rest. Sonny Duke was a man saved years earlier while hearing that same song sung in prison. His shouts filled the building and the recording tape.
Sing it, fat boy, let's go.
But Canaan Records did not like what they heard. The executives in Nashville thought Big and Live was very unprofessional, especially compared to the live albums of other groups. They wanted to take the song off the recording. The Kingsmen refused.
Some of the studio people, I think, well, I don't know exactly who it was, but some of them didn't want us to have the live audience shouting in the recording. And my brother Elder stood his ground. He said, well, you're going to take out the shouting. We just ain't going to just take us out of the studio.
Foxy and Hamill told them in no uncertain terms, if the shouting comes off the record, then take the Kingsmen off too. Needless to say, the shouting stayed. And it became part of the Kingsmen energy that is still alive today. During the recording of Big and Live, Johnny Perrick sang Look for Me at Jesus' Feet, a song written by a young man named Squire Parsons. Squire, along with fellow songwriter Conrad Cook, was sitting in the audience that night in Gadsden. None of them knew it then, but conversation sparked that evening would eventually lead Squire straight into the Kingsmen family. If ever there was a picture that a person could hear, it was the cover of Big and Live. Hamill's coat was gone, his tie tossed somewhere deep into the crowd, Johnny letting out a high note, Ray Dean Reese with his hand raised in pure praise, and Foxy, proud, smiling as the men around him were photographed. It was a freeze frame of pure Kingsman energy. Pianist Nick Bruno had joined the group only 3 weeks before the Gadsden recording.
Well, my introduction to the Kingsmen was pretty interesting, to say the least. I had left the Stamps Quartet and moved up to Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania to work in the Courier's recording studio. Don Baldwin, the manager of the studio and of the Courier, he suggested one day that we go to Asheville. He said the Kingsmen are having a reunion. So we got in his car and drove to Asheville. And when we got there, Eldridge came over and he said, I'm going to be needing a piano player. Would you be interested in the job? I said, would I? You know, I wasn't through traveling yet. And so he offered me a job. We got back home, I checked with my wife, Cece, and she was all for it. So we moved to Asheville.
But Big and Live wasn't the first album for just Nick. Gary Dillard would join the Kingsmen just shortly after the completion of Big and Live. He wasn't in Gadsden that night. He was finishing high school. But Gary, affectionately known as Beaver, would go on to have one of the longest tenures with the Kingsmen.
church in Gardendale, Alabama. And I'd heard they were going to be there. This was August of 1973. Basically, I just went up and asked them, do you need a steel player? And they said, can you play? I said, yeah. Self-confidence here. And that was my last year. I was starting my last year of high school. And I played part-time with them that last year. And June of 74, I moved to North Carolina.
He was so talented. So talented. The thing with Gary was he didn't really realize how talented he was.
And his wife, Judy Beaver Dillard, first week, because I was young, single, he's like, we won't have you over for supper Monday night.
Barry Dillard was one of the most talented guys I've ever met in my life. He could play anything he wanted to, just set his mind to it. For example, harmonica, people think, well, harmonica's easy to play. I'm telling you, play it correctly. It's one of the hardest instruments there is to play. The notes on those things are about this big. And Beef, he bought one of the harmonica and he wanted to play it.
And so began the next few years of success. The Kingsmen were invited to sing with country music giants George Jones and Ronnie Millsap on the Music City special, and they made a name for themselves. In 1974, they became one of the first groups for a gospel music event that no one had thought of before, the Singing at Sea Cruise. The Kingsmen were making moves in gospel music, and the people followed. They were the real deal, and by the time 1975 rolled around, the Kingsmen were on the top of gospel music.
I joined the Kingsmen in 1975 and left in 1979. So 4 years of joy that, my goodness, I just enjoyed it so much. It was a dream come true whenever I got to join them. And then when I had to leave, I went into the ministry. I've always said I'm glad I wasn't run off. I felt I was led off, and I sure hated to leave the fellas. But the Lord allowed us to go into another type of ministry, but still feel like I'm part of the Kingsmen.
Squire Parsons grew up in a small West Virginia church where his father led the singing. So his love for gospel music was shaped early in his childhood. Squire wrote his first songs in college, and he continued while working as a music teacher and a weekend singer. One night, Squire's group shared a program with the Kingsmen. The Kingsmen immediately recognized his talent and spirit, and they invited him to join the quartet. After a year and a half of prayer and consideration, Squire moved to Asheville and officially became a member of the Kingsmen in 1975. He stepped into full-time gospel music and into the role that would help define one of the group's most beloved eras.
I loved that man. I respected him. He was how to say, a different breed. He was calm, always calm. Never heard a bad word out of him. He always loved everybody. And I had a personal experience with him. A lot of the times I drove, back then I was driving at night doing most of the bus driving when I was younger. And of course the buses got what we call a buddy seat. That just sits beside the driver as you come in the door. And old Squire I'd be middle of the night, he'd get up and come and sit down in that chair with a notepad and write songs.
Oh, he just had that placement that was just perfect, and not only that, just he gave the group that big solid sound. It's just a wall of vocals, and if Hamill moved on the lead spot, because Hamill would sing all over the place. If Hamill moved, Squire moved. I've never seen a lead and a baritone have a better sense of what the other one was doing than Jim Hamill and Squire Parsons. And so Squire really set the standard. People like Doyot or Glenn Allred, though Glenn was an incredible singer, but maybe Glenn Allred and Squire Parsons, they set the standard of not only to harmonize as a baritone singer, but to carry a solo as well as anybody else out there.
I'll never forget one night I went to bed, and it was probably 3 o'clock in the morning by the time I got to bed. And I had a little trouble going to sleep just because I'd up and excited, and I'm a part of the Kingsmen Quartet, and I'm traveling with this group of men. I mean, you talk about a who's who in gospel music. As a kid, I'm on the bus with them, and I hardly know what to do with myself. But I look down, and I sleep in the bunk just above Big Jim, and he's gone to sleep. He's out. So I quietly get up in my bunk, and in about less than an hour, I'm still awake, and I just lean over, and I look down, and Squire slept right across the aisle. His light was still on, and his concordance was laying on the step by his bed, and he was still studying his Bible. You can't make those stories up. And it was very impactful to me that if you're going to sing it, you need to know it. Now, you don't have to, but I think your ministry is far stronger if you know what you're singing about. And if Squire Parsons didn't teach me anything else, he taught me that, and it's one of the most valuable lessons I ever had.
In 1976, Jim Hamill went back home to Memphis for a short time to work with the Senators Quartet. By the time he came back, Squire had penned many songs and had gained considerable experience behind the microphone during Hamill's absence. Squire came at a time when Eldridge Fox was beginning to step down from the stage and work behind the scenes.
There is a land that I have been told, where the streets are paved with pure gold, and the bright flowers bloom through all eternity. Mansions are glistening on the bright shore, beauty this world could never afford. I've got a reservation, my name's been written down. I've got a reservation to walk on the streets of gold. I've got a reservation where the pearly gates unfold. In the heaven my name's been written down. I'm longing to hear that trumpet sound. I've got a reservation. My name's been written down.
By early 1977, the Kingsmen were experiencing another moment of transition. Johnny Perrick, whose soaring tenor had become a signature part of the Kingsmen sound, stepped away from the road. Johnny wasn't just a singer, he was a fan favorite, a powerhouse tenor, and a major reason the Kingsmen reached the heights they did in the mid-1970s.
Now, get over here. I want to introduce this one right here. Everybody says, well, how big is he? Well, he's 5'2". Would you welcome the little giant, Ernie Phillips? Ernie?
Into that open tenor spot stepped a young man from West Virginia, Ernie Phillips. Small in stature but carrying a voice that felt 10 feet tall, Ernie was a little giant. Ernie didn't come in to replace Johnny, but to continue the tradition of powerhouse Kingsmen tenors. The moment he opened his mouth to sing, it was clear. This was a new chapter with its own electricity.
He's a musical hero, you know, and very humble. That's another thing that I got out of, you know, the Kingsmen is, you know, just you can be confident, but you need to be humble, and that's the thing. So that's what I saw with that of Ernie. He had that confidence to deliver, but you talk to he's humble. And I remember going on a cruise ship one time, and Ernie was there, and we were gonna do Oh Ship of Zion, and so he was like, hey, Jerry, you go do it. And I was like, no. No, this is you. And so, because I wanted him to do that, but he would be, you go up front, you do this. And he was gracious like that. And it wasn't like, let them see me. But he was totally opposite. And when I when I heard him, and that's another thing that got me hooked, was when I heard him sing live, "Love Lifted Me." That was it for me. I was like, him hitting those high notes, and I would goosebumps, and I'm like, that's it.
He was funny.
Mm-hmm.
He was always on board with, he never had the final word at him. Never heard a, he always wanted to, just one of the guys.
Right.
One of the guys. Funny.
This also brought a new dynamic to the stage, the big giant and the little giant. Ernie Phillips and Jim Hamill always had an energy with each other that really gave the Ton of Fun their name back. After signing with Heartwarming Records in late 1976, the group began planning a major live recording. Their first attempt, scheduled for Thanksgiving night in Knoxville, Tennessee at a J. Basil Mole concert, never materialized. But the idea didn't die. It simply waited for the right moment and the right crowd. That moment arrived in the summer of 1977.
We're happy tonight to see this tremendous crowd here at your Mall's 19th anniversary. Ain't that right, Miss Mall?
That's right.
This is your old neighbor, Jay Basil.
And Mrs. Mouse.
And now we have the mighty Kingsmen Quartet from Asheville, North Carolina. The Kingsmen Quartet. Hello!
Inside a packed auditorium in Chattanooga, Tennessee, more than 4,500 fans gathered for another Mull-promoted concert. The Kingsmen shared the program with the Blackwood Brothers, Jerry and the Goffs, Faye Sims and the Scenic Land Boys, a lineup already worthy of history. But on that night, something extraordinary happened. What the Kingsmen captured became one of the most electrifying live albums Southern gospel music would ever know, Chattanooga Live.
We talked to Brother Mull about doing live. We're actually going to do it in Knoxville, closer to home.
Right.
But it just didn't work out. Time-wise, it worked out. We did it in Chattanooga, and it was just material. We Do Not Die again. So we had already recorded it on just a little closer home record.
Mm-hmm.
And, but it was us and those people. That night was amazing.
When you had Ernie and Squire and Hamill and Ray, that sound, it was so big, and it's probably because of Squire's big baritone voice. It's such a big voice. To me, that was of course, that was, you're always partial to the album or the lineup that you grew up with or you remember seeing. That was your favorite, but that sound to me was just magical.
Produced by Joe Huffman and Eldridge Fox, his first official production credit, by the way, the Kingsmen were in peak form. The crowd in Chattanooga was ready to worship, ready to laugh, ready to shout, and their energy became part of the album itself. Kingsmen live recordings had always leaned heavily on audience participation, but this night was different. The audience became a driving force, pushing the music higher and the emotion deeper. The 14-year-old son of Eldridge Fox, Greg, had joined the Kingsmen as the group's drummer. Producer Joe Huffman wasn't certain that the young musician could hold up under the pressure of a major live recording, so studio time had been booked in advance to repair any mistakes that may occur. But when the tape rolled, Greg delivered a flawless performance. The live drum tracks stayed just as they were.
I started playing in 1976. I was not on the record. We did just a little closer home record. And I was in school, and my dad said, "You are not going to finish on correspondence. You're going to finish high school." And both times, and then the next record was Upper Window, and I'm not on that cover either because, like I said, I was in school and I didn't get to get. Dad would not let me. Not only did I have my dad on the bus, I had 8 or 9 other dads and uncles that I had. So I started in '76, and my first album was Chattanooga Live.
The concert opened with a signature introduction from the legendary broadcaster and preacher himself, J. Basil Mull. His instantly recognizable style set the tone before Nick Bruno's piano burst into motion and the Kingsmen charged onto the platform with Luther Presley's Traveling Home. From there, the energy only rose. Gary Dillard's steel guitar framed Squire Parsons' The Lovely Name of Jesus, a song inspired by a hitchhiker the Kingsmen once picked up at a truck stop. The moment became one of the album's defining highlights. Simple, powerful, a moment of worship as the audience responded with overwhelming emotion. The momentum continued with Mosey Lister's When They Call My Name, a fast-paced quartet feature for Ray Reese and Ernie Phillips. And then it happened. The Kingsmen debuted Is That the Old Ship of Zion, a song rearranged into the dramatic, reverent version that would go on to become the Kingsmen's signature song. As the group sang a cappella, the audience erupted, and a full camp meeting broke out right there in the middle of the concert. Ray was visibly moved, nearly overcome with the spirit as the message of the song took hold.
Well, live album or no live album, it doesn't matter. I don't care if I did mess it up. I'm so thankful for the spirit that I feel here tonight. And I still don't know if I can sing it, but I want you to remember one thing. Listen closely to the words. And one of these days, the old ship of Zion's are going to come in. And remember, it will only come this way one time. And if we're not ready, then it'll be too late.
We did my favorite song at the time, which was Old Ship of Zion. And it's still my favorite song. I've got, over the years, my 57 years that I've been here, that's about 3 or 4 of my favorite, very favorite songs.
Old Ship of Zion. You know, wow. We did that record. That came to us when Connor wrote that. That came, I was standing on the bank of 6/8. Yeah, that's the way it came. And Dad, he just said, Junior, and that's what we call Squire. And a lot of people say, well, who are you talking about? Squire is who I'm talking about. We called him Junior because his dad was Squire to us. And so he said, Squire, let's try to do this a cappella. You take the lead and let's do it around. And we did that about 2 days before in a little town in Red Bank, Alabama.
The finale, Learning to Lean, blended seamlessly into Squire Parsons' delivery of the solid rock. What had started as a concert ended as a service. People in the crowd responded to the message, and members of the Blackwood Brothers, including James Blackwood himself, stepped out from behind the curtains to pray with those people who came to the front. It was a moment of revival, and it was all captured on tape. Chattanooga Live, a live album where every single track became a classic. The rest of the year rolled around, and the boys from Asheville cemented themselves as one of the top groups of gospel music. They had one of the greatest teams in gospel music history, not just with the lineup, but with the songs and stage presence. But another change was coming. Pianist Nick Bruno departed from the group in 1978, and that opened the door for a young man from Cleveland, Tennessee, who just 13 years earlier had been told he would never be able to move his hands.
My name is Anthony Berger. I started playing the piano at the age of 3. When I was 8 months old, I was learning to walk in a walker, and one of the wheels of the walker got stuck in a floor furnace that we had in our home back in Tennessee, and the walker turned over. It burned both of my hands. I was carried on a pillow for a year, had 3 medicated baths a day for a year. Doctor said I'd never be able to move my hands, but I can.
Anthony Berger, another name synonymous with the Kingsmen. With his flashy performance, Anthony would emerge as one of Southern gospel music's most remarkable talents. He joined the Kingsmen as the group's pianist at just 16 years of age. He was a young prodigy whose playing would help shape the sound of the quartet for more than a decade.
Anthony was the one that influenced my playing the most, and every time that I step on stage with the Kingsmen, I try to pay homage to all of those that came before me by keeping their particular piano style alive.
You know, when I started to play piano for the group, and that's something that when I first started, you know, everywhere we went had a piano, and I'd go, and after we were done setting up, I'd play a little bit, and that's really, I don't describe myself as a piano player, but just somebody who loves to play the piano. And so when I started to get to do some of the, you know, playing more in our set, Alan had mentioned trying to find a piano solo that I could do. And we started with I Saw the Light, and that was a great Andrew Ishii arrangement. And but you know, I started to listen to what we had, and I started to listen to Anthony, and when I heard the Hallelujah chorus, I thought, that's incredible. And the playing was incredible, but the feeling, the way it impacted people, I thought if I could somehow, you know, just attempt this. And so I think one of the greatest piano players to ever come along in gospel music is Anthony Berger. But the Hallelujah chorus, it was so incredible to me, not just for the technical skills that he had, but for the amount of heart that he played with. And
we were singing, I believe, in Calhoun, Georgia one year. And he was just a kid. He was playing for a local group. And, you know, someone said, you know, really for his hands playing, for his age and everything. He said, I'll tell you what, son, if I ever need it, I'm going to keep you on my line. If I ever need a piano player, I'm going to call you.
Anthony was such a talent. You know, it's said over and over. Everybody talks about Anthony's talent, and really was. He would surprise me every night. We used to do. Hamill would do this thing with him where he would take songs out of the audience and let them request songs. And for the most part, you know, most crowds, there's certain songs that people know automatically, like I'll Fly Away or How Great Thou Art or Amazing Grace. So those standards that just about every crowd will holler out. But every once in a while, you'd have somebody who would just throw out something and that was completely off the cuff, and you think, well, there's no way he's going to know how to play this song. In fact, one night in particular, it was sometime around Christmas, I think it was, somebody hollered out The Little Drummer Boy for Anthony to play on the piano. Well, we just started hee-hawing because we thought, well, there's absolutely no way that a piano player can play The Little Drummer Boy. Well, he started off in that medley, and about halfway through that medley, he started playing the drummer boy, and it was phenomenal. Well, we're just standing around with our mouths wide open because it's just, you know, we've never heard anything like it. It's great. It's just great.
From 1978 to the early days of 1980, the group recorded 6 top 10 songs. The Kingsmen also had a Dove Award-winning album with the LP From Out of the Past, and with the departure of longtime bass player Jim McCauley and vocalist Squire Parsons, Eldridge Fox hired a very familiar face of gospel music. But back then, Foxy was providing the opportunity for a young man to fulfill his dreams of being a part of the music he dearly loved.
My time with the Kingsmen was a whole lot like going into the Army and being in boot camp. And that's what a lot of people refer to my time there as being boot camp for me, for doing what I've now done for almost 52 years. When I went to the Kingsmen, Jim McCauley had left and moved to Arizona, which left on the front line was Ernie Phillips, Squire Parsons, Big Jim Hamill, Ray Reese. Piano player was Anthony Berger. And I went there to play bass and to sing Big Jim's high notes on the end of songs. And that's what I did for the first year that I was there. And then, well, not quite a year into my tenure there is when Squire left to pursue his solo ministry as we have known it all those years after that. And that put me singing part-time and playing part-time.
Mark had sang with Jim Hamill during Jim's 1976 absence from the Kingsmen. And as much of a talent that Mark was, Ray remembers Mark for another skill.
Mark was a good golfer. Still is a good golfer. Well, he thinks he's a good golfer. You can leave that in there. I hope you see this, Mark. He was and still is fantastic.
I agree.
He still sings like he did when he was a young kid. I don't know how old he is, but he's fantastic.
As of early 2026, the lineup of Ernie, Hamill, Foxy, Ray, and the Kingsmen band of Trammell, Greg, Beaver, and Anthony had 6 Hall of Fame members. It was definitely a strong lineup, and that strong lineup on September 9th, 1979, performed on a stage like none other. President Jimmy Carter invited the boys from the mountains of North Carolina to perform on the White House lawn. And still to this day, the Kingsmen remain as one of the very few groups of Southern gospel music to ever do so. Soon thereafter, another notable name came into the group. When he first arrived to the Kingsmen, the duty of Wayne Maynard, the future Mr. Child, was to drive the bus. But he soon took over the duties of singing baritone. He and Mark Trammell would swap playing the bass and singing, and those were just elements of Foxy's management skills showing off. You know, build a roster of young, upcoming talent, pair it with veterans of the music, build the greatest group in Southern gospel. Leo Fender, the founder of the Fender Music Company, thought the 2 new bass players of the Kingsmen were quite something indeed. So when he patented his new Music Man bass, instead of gifting them to rock stars or country musicians, he gave the very first 2 models to 2 Kingsmen boys, Mark and Wayne.
We played the first time we went to the West Coast. I was playing bass and driving, and I was playing a Fender Precision.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember where we were at. Some church out on the West Coast, and this guy walks up and bib overhauls and a slide rule in his pocket.
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, I appreciate you playing one of my basses." He said, "Hi, I'm Leo Fender," and I about passed out. I'm going, really? And he said, "How would you like to try my new model, which was the Music Man?" I said, yeah, absolutely, I would. He said, "Well, I'll get some information." So him and Eldridge talked. They figured it out where we were going to be, and he wanted to know my full name. He wanted my initials. I said, "Wonder what he wants with that." And then when I got the guitar, on the paperwork, it had my initials and the serial number.
In 1981, the Kingsmen earned the group's first Singing News Fan Award for Favorite Song. The song was Sweet Beulah Land, written by Squire Parsons. Despite this success, the early 80s were somewhat rocky for the Kingsmen. Mark Trammell got an offer to sing baritone with the Cathedrals, and Beaver also left the group for a short time. Trying to maintain the big full sound of the Kingsmen band, Sam Crow joined the group in Beaver's place alongside the short-lived second tenure of smiling Jim McCauley. The year 1981 would also see the release of an album that was filled with countless songs that are still remembered today. The Kingsmen were on the verge of something huge, but even the members of the Kingsmen themselves had no idea just how huge that something would be.
We absolutely wore Live Naturally out. It was on cassette tape, and at that time when it came out, my brother and myself and my cousin, we had a little trio, Southern Gospel trio, and I mean, we absolutely wore out Live Naturally. And so much where if we could find it on a cassette somewhere else, we had to buy it because we wore out the first And so it was just, and Wayne Maynard was singing baritone by then, and Wayne just had that cut and that tone, that tone, it would just split, part your hair for you. And so all those songs, Feet Touch the Streets of Gold, and then Ernie hits the high note on Love Lifted Me. I mean, just absolutely blew the roof off. Nearing the Shore, I mean, it was just amazing. I just love that record. And I've got the double album at home, and I wouldn't take $1 million for it.
I was the first Kingsman record I ever owned when I started actually playing gospel music was Live Naturally, and that beautiful home cut on that is just never been touched before or since. I think. Wow.
Live Naturally, the album recorded in Mount Vernon, Illinois. Every time the Kingsmen recorded a live album, it was a big deal. But Live Naturally became something bigger than anyone expected. What began as a single live recording grew into a double album and the best-selling release of the group's career. Recorded in October 1980 in front of a crowd like none other, Live Naturally showcased the Kingsmen doing exactly what they did best, singing Southern gospel music, quartet style. From God's in the Business to Someone to Care, this double LP was an hour and 38 minutes of Kingsman goodness. It featured staples that are still staged today. But 3 songs from the recording did not just stand out that night. They became signature songs for the Kingsmen. Beautiful Home was pure convention energy. Written by Morris Stansel, the song blended joy, anticipation, and drive, powered by Sam Crow's banjo and a band clearly having the time of their lives. Jim Hamill's enthusiasm is unmistakable, and the crowd feeds off of it instantly. The response in Mount Vernon proved the song's staying power. It would chart strongly, become a Kingsman classic, and remain in the group's concert repertoire for more than 4 decades. Few songs capture the group's live spirit as completely as Beautiful Home. During the unplanned second half of the recording, the atmosphere reached another level with When My Feet Touch the Streets of Gold. As the old bus driver turned singer Wayne Maynard stepped forward, the room ignited. His delivery was measured, powerful, and relentless, building toward an ending that sent the audience to its feet. The performance perfectly balanced precision and passion. One of those moments where everything lined up. The singer, the song, the band, and the crowd. It remains one of the most celebrated live performances in Kingsman history. And let us not forget Excuses. What began as a novelty song quickly became a turning point, not just for the album, but for the group's career. That night, the audience reaction made the choice unmistakable. The song's clever structure and Jim Hamill's arrangement allowed Ray Dean Reese and Ernie Phillips to shine. Released as a single, Excuses went on to become the Kingsmen's first #1 song. It held the top spot for nearly a full year.
When Ernie stepped up to the microphone, and this was Hamill's idea, he said, I didn't even say that. Yeah, I knew right then. We got us a hit.
Jim Hamill was so perfectly matched to the tongue-in-cheek kind of sarcasm found in that song. His stage personality, the way he picked on the Kingsmen, and here he was picking on a subject that has always been a common problem among Christianity is people who maybe are just a little bit lukewarm in their service to the Lord. And he said, all right, take a moment, laugh at yourselves, and now let's get together and serve Jesus.
Back then, every little old station in the world played it, and whether they were a reporting station or not, and things like that. And, just a lot of different things. But how it got to be #1, I really don't know. Other than the fact that, because we were going to release Nearing the Shore, Squire song, as the first single. That was going to be the first single. And I don't know that we released them both at the same time, but it just, every little old radio station in the world was playing Excuses. And we hadn't even released it. the whole album yet. It's just a single. Near and Shore was out there, and it just hit. It just and it was a funny song. And it was, Jim didn't had the little thing with Ernie and Ray, blow that poor kid's nose and all that. But it still said something.
Since Wayne Maynard was now singing baritone, the group needed a bass player after the second departure of Jim McCauley. The quartet found the perfect person to fill that vacancy. He was a boy who had forever dreamed of being a member of the Kingsmen, Ed Crawford. Ed was initially hired to drive the bus and run sound for the group, but he moved into a full-time vocal role after playing bass guitar for the Kingsmen for just a short time. On the studio album Your Ride's on the Way, Ed emerged as a key voice. He always brought sincerity and strength, signaling that he wasn't just filling in. He was becoming part of the Kingsmen story.
With the Kingsmen, and was with the Kingsmen for all 10 years, and it was a joy to spend 10 of the happiest years of my life with what I consider to be one of the great organizations of gospel music.
Although changes seemed to come every year, the Kingsmen were always at the top of their game. From 1980 to 1983, the group was awarded 14 Singing News Fan Awards, including Group of the Year in 1980 and Band of the Year from 1980 to 1983. The Band of the Year was led by Pianist of the Year Anthony Berger, who is still the most awarded musician in gospel music. In 1983, the Kingsmen completed work on an album with their longtime friend Grady Nutt. It was a comedy album titled Give the World a Smile. And then, the Kingsmen were ready to head to Alabama, a state that had become almost a second home to the guys. Gadsden, Alabama had provided the location for Big and Live, the Kingsmen's iconic album of the early 1970s. This time the Kingsmen were headed to Tuscaloosa. And what happened in Tuscaloosa that night? Well, that's something only history and 15,000 fans can tell. By this time, the group known as the Kingsmen was not just a gospel quartet. The Kingsmen were the masters of the live album. With 3 major live recordings already behind the group, 4 if you count Give the World a Smile with Grady Nutt, the Kingsmen knew how to capture a moment and turn it into history. Now, in April of 1983, the Kingsmen were headed to the Memorial Coliseum on the campus of the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. More than 15,000 people were packed into the building that night. The anticipation was unmistakable, and the atmosphere, it was electric. The Kingsmen weren't the only ones recording. The Spears were also on the program, capturing a live album of their own. They were celebrating their incredible legacy, and their recording included special moments with the legendary Spears sisters. It was the perfect way to start the evening. Live at the University of Alabama was produced by Eldridge Fox and Jim Hamill. Wayne Hilton served as executive producer. There were moments during the evening when it was almost impossible to hear what was taking place on stage. Not because of the sound system, but because the crowd was so loud. Without missing a beat, Hamill calls out, shouting happy. Originally recorded in 1975 on the album Jubilation, this live version feels bigger. It feels alive. As Ernie Phillips holds his note on the final chorus, the crowd surges, and the Kingsmen announce something very clearly. This will be another historic live album. The night in Tuscaloosa unfolds with the traditional quartet field of I'm So Glad, written by Squire Parsons and highlighted by Anthony Berger's playful piano work. Then comes More Excuses, the sequel to the group's smash hit. Though the Kingsmen were hesitant to include the song, More Excuses made the album, but it was rarely staged again. Then Wayne Maynard steps forward for what would become his signature song, Child, Child. But that song almost didn't happen. The original demo had been lost. It was later found behind the sofa on the bus. Originally intended for Ernie, the song finally found its voice with Wayne. And during the performance in Tuscaloosa, church breaks out. Multiple encores followed that night, but time constraints limited the album version to just one. The song would later climb to number 3 in June of 1984, and it remains one of the most spiritually impactful songs the Kingsmen ever recorded. Before When Crossing Time Shall Come, Jim Hamill pauses, and he shares the weight the group had carried over the past year. Ernie and his wife had lost a child. Ray's father had passed away, and the group was still grieving the loss of their friend Grady Nutt, who had perished in an airplane crash. As Ray sings the line, "Together with my dad," the emotion becomes overwhelming. This isn't performance, it's real. And that moment leads directly into the finale, "Saints Will Rise." The song would go on to reach number 1 in early 1984, the Kingsmen's second chart topper. This was Ernie's final album with the Kingsmen, but his impact is still felt with the group. His timeless moments and spirit are what a Kingsman truly is. With Ernie's departure, the Kingsmen needed a tenor, and stepping up to the plate was a mere shepherd boy from Missouri.
Hi, folks. I'm Gary Sheppard. I sang with the tenor singer with the Kingsmen from 1983 to 1993, and it's good to be back.
Gary Sheppard, affectionately known as Squeaky, a phenomenal golfer, as quoted by many former Kingsmen.
I go work on the golf camp, son.
Squeaky had elements of former tenors, but he brought his own sound and his own style.
I was a lead miner back in Missouri and singing with local groups who we were called the Praisemen, and we won third place in 1980 at the National Quartet Convention, and we won first place in 1981. And I was a lead miner by trade, and I would take my vacation and go to the National Quartet Convention in Nashville at the Municipal Auditorium there. And I had been heard a couple of weeks prior to that, and was sitting in the living room of some good friends. The Praisemen were about to break up, and they said, "If you had a chance to sing with anybody in the business, who would you sing with?" And I said, "Anybody but the Kingsmen." I said, "I don't think I could sing that type of tenor. I was more of a easy melodic tenor. I wasn't the go and blow, sing in the sky tenor. At least I didn't think I was."
He was a golfing buddy, and he could sing, He's a little bit different, but he has we always thought he has a mixture of Ernie and Willie Wynn.
Okay.
But he was just a great guy.
Soon thereafter, Wayne Maynard left the Kingsmen, and the bass guitar position was open. However, Foxy did not have to travel too far to find a replacement. In fact, the replacement was Ray's cousin.
Now I've sung to those walking through the fiery trial, and I've watched their saddened faces turn into happy smiles. Then I bowed my head and whispered, "Lord, please do the same for me." And I'm proud that I can tell you that He's given victory.
Well, it was funny. I was singing with a group called the Gerald Payne Family. About 1983, I guess it was. Or we sang with the Kingsmen over in Mars Hill, North Carolina. It was the first time really that Eldridge had heard me sing. Some of the guys had heard me sing here at the church, and I was taking piano lessons from Anthony, and so they kind of knew a little bit about me, but it's really the first time that Eldridge had heard me sing. And so shortly after that, Ernie asked me if I would like to ride with him on the bus a weekend or something, or go down. We went down to Charlotte a couple times, and so I kind of got the chance to ride the bus a little bit. And so Eldridge called me one day. It was on a Friday, and he said, would you ever be interested in singing in the Kingsmen? And I said, well, absolutely. Thinking the whole time, well, that's never going to happen. And so he said, well, if you're interested, be in my office on Monday morning. And so I showed up at his office about 10 o'clock on Monday morning, and he offered me a job, and the rest is history.
Arthur wasn't just a bass player, he was a singer. And he was in his natural element every time he stepped on stage.
I already knew all the music, and that was one of the things, about the Kingsmen. We didn't just do new songs, we did songs that were 20 years old, that they had sung. And so I already knew all the music, knew how to play it, knew how to sing it, knew all the parts to it, so so it was an easy transition for me.
Arthur brought something to gospel music that had never been heard before. Someone with an insane range, and someone who had just incredible abilities as a musician. Someone with so many talents that you had to stop and think, what do I do with this incredible artist? Well, they needed a bass player, obviously, so they put him on the bass. Just a tremendous bass player. But we're talking about a guy who could easily sing tenor, and did off and on if they ever needed a tenor fill-in. Arthur was the guy. But Arthur just did something special to a song that absolutely nobody else could.
And thus, the dawn of 1985. Just 15 years ago did Eldridge Fox decide to put his group on the road full-time. And the stages they were about to see would be big chapters in the Kingsmen story.
That was great, man. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I hope everybody that watching the podcast enjoyed that part 2 of the documentary, Then and Now. And I love it that Evan was able to go back on previous videos and to get Eldridge Fox and Jim Hamill actually talking and really, talking, telling it from their side.
Right.
I love that. And even Squire, they had Squire come on there and talk about, being led off from the Kingsmen instead of run off. And
that's right.
And mainly this 71 to 85, this particular episode was the guys that I really grew up with. So getting to hear from them, and it was when they used some of our they used some of our interviews, a little bit of the snippet from Johnny Perrick.
That's right.
Talking about when Joel Gentry called him. And then Wayne Maynard talked about getting the bass from Leo Fender. That was off our podcast. So that made me feel pretty good that they actually used segments of the podcast.
Yes, sir. That's right. And I wrote down, while I was watching that episode, wrote down a couple of notes, stuff that I kind of knew and didn't know, but the Music City special they recorded in Nashville, Tennessee, that I guess it was a weekly TV show.
Yeah.
But got to sing with George Jones and Roddy Millsap. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
To think about mixing a little bit of gospel and country there. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And then also Eldridge Fox, him and Maurice Templeton got together and created a Singing at Sea cruise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Kingsmen, I guess, have been on the majority of those Singing at Cruise.
Well,
Singing at Sea
yeah,
cruises.
I think that the Kingsmen have been on every single Singing at Sea. And so that's a quite a legacy to be involved in that. And they said the very first ship, I think the very first Singing at Sea was the Kingsmen, the Cathedrals, the Nealons, the Florida Boys, and I think there was one other group, but I can't think of the other group. Might have been the Spears, maybe.
Right.
There was five. I think there were just 5 groups, and it was a very small ship. So
That's right. And speaking about with your time on the Kingsmen, how many of them singing at sea cruises you've been on?
Oh gosh. I think the last time I counted, I was on I think 10 singing at seas with the Kingsmen.
Yeah.
And then Yvonne and I have been on the singing at sea as our own being the host.
Yeah.
Well, and I was on there with another quartet too.
Yeah.
I'm going to say about 21 or 22 singing at seas I've been on.
Wow.
Maybe more than that. Maybe 24. I can't remember. So
Full-time cruiser, yeah.
Oh yeah. yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, and then also talk about 1976. I guess originally were scheduled to record Chattanooga live, but they was going to record it in Knoxville.
Yeah.
On
yeah.
Thanksgiving night with the Reverend J. Bezel Moore and his wife and all. But I didn't know that until I watched this episode. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. All the years I've and all the years that Chattanooga Live has been my favorite.
Yeah,
one of my favorite Kingsman albums, and I didn't realize that they were going to attempt that in Knoxville.
Right.
And of course the Knoxville concert. I've been at I think it's the Tivoli Theater, maybe.
Okay.
I think that's the Tivoli Theater, and back on my first tenure, we went there quite a bit, and that's where we did the "You're Not Alone" video. We did it there in Knoxville.
Yeah.
So that would have been, I'm guessing that would have been the location for the Chattanooga Live building.
That's
venue.
right.
So yeah,
Wow.
pretty
That's
cool stuff.
Yes, sir. And then also on that same recording when they done it in Chattanooga Live, that was Greg Fox's first time playing on a recording with the Kingsmen.
Yeah.
And talk like the record executives were kind of didn't really want him played because he was a young kid.
Yeah.
But I guess Eldridge and Jim said, no, we're going to have him on there. But he did great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think in one of his interviews that we did with him, he talked about they had set aside drum tracks.
Yes.
To go back and overdub his drum tracks with a I guess quote unquote studio professional drummer.
Right.
And Greg did a great job, and they kept him on there, and which I think, in my opinion, I think Greg Fox is one of the greatest drummers I've ever heard. So
yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, sure. But that was some neat information to learn in this episode. And I can't wait till the next episode to learn some more and stuff that I didn't know,
Absolutely. Well, and we've said this before, Evan Bradford, he's a Kingsman historian to a degree, and he has really taken on this labor of love and done this documentary for the Kingsmen. And episode 1 was great. Episode 2, which you just saw here on the podcast is wonderful, and looking forward to the next. And I think there's going to be a total of four parts, I believe 4 parts. And so I'm guessing 86 will probably be 86 to maybe 96, maybe next time, or 95 or whatever it works out to be. But like I said, Evan's doing a great job. And I will say this very quickly. All things Kingsman.
Yeah.
We want to talk about this. Decades of music, decades of memory, 70 years of songs, stories, and moments from the Kingsmen. If you haven't got this book yet, go on Amazon. Alan Kendall, current baritone and MC, has done a wonderful job putting this book together. And so a lot of the information that we use on a podcast here, Josh, we get from the book of stuff we are not sure about. And so it's able, if you're a Kingsman fan, this is a must for you. So get this, go on to Amazon and grab this book. And I know you'll enjoy this for sure. So
yes, sir. A great book as well. Can't wait till the second book comes out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna hurry up and let's get it over with. I'm ready to read it. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Evan done a great job on this. I'm telling you, he's doing a great job. Episode 1 was great. Episode 2 knocked it out of the ballpark again, and just anxiously waiting for episode 3 when it comes out. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, Evan's doing a great job, and just love honoring the Kingsmen, the years the guys spent on the road and introducing these songs to gospel music. And I'm so thankful. And that's, the documentary Evan done. And that's the reason we do this podcast is just to honor the guys that were there. Just like our tagline, the message, the men and the music of the Kingsmen. So we want to keep honoring those fellows and recognizing their stories and their tenures with the Kingsmen. And so we appreciate that very much, and looking forward to episode 3.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this great episode of Behind the Crown podcast, as we got to view Then and Now, episode 2 of the Kingsmen documentary created by Evan Bradford. Keep up the great work, Evan. You're doing a great job, sir. Also, you can be sure to listen to each and every episode of Behind the Crown podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all major podcast streaming platforms. And then also you can view each and every episode on YouTube. Just search Behind the Crown podcast on YouTube and you can find it there. And then also be sure to like and follow Behind the Crown podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok as well too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Behind the Crown podcast with your hosts Bryan Hutson and Josh Griffin. If you would, please like, rate, and share this episode. Join us again for another episode of the Behind the Crown podcast.